Hey guys, how are we doing? Thanks for joining me for another video. I've got two stories for you today, two viewer stories that have been sent in. They're quite long stories, hence why there's only two. And as always, the upload time is about the same as always, okay? I don't have a lot to say today, so I'm going to get straight into story number one.
สวัสดีค่ะ
I had just finished a long day at work and decided to treat myself to a walk by the Singapore River and have a drink at a well-known bridge at Clarke Quay. This bridge is a popular hangout with younger crowds and people who generally don't want to pay for the overpriced drinks in the pubs and clubs in the area. So there I was in the muggy evening air. I strolled into the nearby 7-Eleven to get a drink, an ice cold water, and I did not drink alcohol at the time. Meandering over to the foot of the bridge, I found a quieter spot to sit and started enjoying people watching. While I sat there, I recall watching a cockroach crawl across the edge of the bridge towards two young Indian guys, and it scurried up one of their shirts, and moments later I saw him widely squirm as if he put his tongue on an electrical wire. It was not more than a minute later, from the corner of my eye, that I caught someone. Two young Filipinas done up for a night out on the town. They entered the 7-Eleven that I had just been to, and I didn't pay them much attention after that. It wasn't long before they returned with drinks in hand, looking around as if they had lost something in the crowds. I saw them look over to the two Indian guys, and I assumed they would head over there. To my surprise, they then turned their focus on me. By that time, I had already been married for 2 years. A gold ring was on my finger, like a beacon telling women I was someone trustworthy or not a threat at best. The ladies and I then locked eyes, mine darted back and forth between them. MJ looked like a young Drew Barrymore, while the woman who was to become my wife, we'll call her Veronica, looked like a teen rock star with jean shorts, a plain t-shirt and curly brown hair that was pulled back in that 2011 style and cascaded down her back past her backside. They approached with big beautiful smiles and asked if I could assist them. I could see that the two of them had just had their nails done and they didn't want to ruin them by trying to open the cans of vodka coolers they had just purchased from 7-Eleven. I happily obliged them. From there, we hit it off and made small talk. The night went on full of laughter and conversation. They were so carefree, it seemed, and it made getting to know them easy. Neither Veronica nor I recall how that night ended, but we both remember it was us going our separate ways. Me on the bus and then by cab. I think back now on how lovely an experience it was meeting those two beautiful souls and the feeling how effortless it was to be myself. Weeks went by and I couldn't stop thinking of them, is what people would think I felt, but I couldn't have cared less. But as fate would have it, I was walking on Orchard Road, Singapore's premier shopping district, enjoying the sights and the ambience when I noticed curly brown hair neatly down the knees to the knees bobbing in front of me, accompanied by a bobbed cut babe beside her. It was the ladies from that fateful night on the bridge. I quickly tiptoed up behind them like a cartoon villain and started talking about them in ways that would make them blush, and they abruptly spun around with wide smiles, and then a look of shock and amazement came over their faces. We all started laughing and carried on together as if the night on the bridge was just yesterday. We hung out for the rest of the day and evening. Again, it was nothing but laughter, food, and getting to know them. After this meeting, we decided to stay in touch because we had the same days off work and we would run into each other once or twice a month, usually by chance. On one of these occasions, the girls invited me to stay over at their place as I had missed my last train. So we took a taxi together to their apartment and continued to hang out throughout the wee hours of the night. When it was time to get ready for bed, I just took a small mattress on the floor and woke up in the morning with Veronica beside me. It will be hard for your listeners to believe it, but nothing happened between any of us. At that time, I was somewhat naive in the ways of women, still a nice guy if you recall. It was on this day in the early morning hours that I would see cracks in Veronica's emotional armour and a different person to who she portrayed herself to be. As we both had work that morning, we decided to take the bus together from their place. We hopped on the bus, taking our seats next to each other. Veronica at the window and me at the aisle. Veronica wasn't really there though, gazing dead-eyed out of the window. She seemed to be off somewhere vacant, in the way an abandoned house feels as you drive past without any care in the world. I saw that in her in that moment, and my heart felt for her, not knowing what was missing in her life. It made the white knight in me ignite, but it wasn't my place to do anything for her, and I hoped she would be all right. Unknowingly, that would be the last time I see her for nearly a year and a half. During that time, anyway, she started dating a guy from Scotland who I knew nothing of. Meanwhile, MJ and I managed to run into each other on occasion and have lunch or dinner, depending on the time we happened to cross paths. I often asked her where Veronica was and whether she wanted to come with us like the times before, but she said Veronica was busy or wasn't interested. Later, I would learn that it was because of the boyfriend at the time. Either way, MJ and I had developed a nice friendship built largely in part to us both having children of our own and how those said children were hitting their milestones. It was around 2012 when I moved back to Canada to further my qualifications. I had just left my wife and child in Bangkok while I was to school in Canada for 10 months. As I mentioned, this was when I had lost most hope in my relationship working out, and being back in Canada regained my self-confidence and self-worth. I let my wife at the time understand that if things did not change, I would be leaving. But like most emotionally and psychology manipulative people, they never believe you until you leave. So after being back to work in Singapore for about 4 months, I was fortunate enough to come across MJ while being out for a walk downtown. She was happy to see me and give me a warm hug. Once again, we met up about once or twice a month, depending on fate's hand, and we shared the simple enjoyment of talking about our children and our dreams for the future. For her, she dreamed of moving to Germany as she had met a man from there and who accepted her son. She was learning German at the time and preparing to move there once she was able to pass the German-speaking exams to get into nursing there. Big surprise, I know, but one has to say the tendency of these Filipino men and women to learn new languages and work around the world, as well as maintaining a genuinely positive image to the world, is commendable. At this point, unbeknownst to me, Veronica's relationship with a Scot was crumbling due to infidelity, the details of which she may one day share in her own story worth telling. But for now, Veronica was nearly single and still not interested in joining MJ and I for anything. It was around November 2013 when MJ finally managed to take her German language exam, and I'm happy to say she passed it with flying colours. It wouldn't be long before she would become a distant yet pleasant memory. In our last meet-up, she told me about how her and her son, along with her German fiancé, would be moving to Germany at the end of the month. It's always sad in places like Singapore, especially for expats who stay long enough. You usually lose all your friends, not all at once, but slowly over time. With MJ in the rear view mirror waving goodbye, she did something small that would spark the flame of a love so deep and burning with passion that she would feel the flames all the way to Germany. Knowing Veronica had been split up for the past 6 months or so, she mentioned to her that I was a good friend to MJ and that he could also be a good friend to Veronica. This is a moment from story 1 where I was walking around Asia bookstore and received the mysterious message on WhatsApp from the beautiful young woman I did not recognize. As your listeners may recall, we ended up meeting that day and had an absolutely great time. Veronica, myself, and our good friend Marco. At this time, I was stuck with my wife, but we were steadily declining. If your listeners again can recall, this was around the time when I took my wife on the surprise trip to Chiang Mai, only to have my ex-wife complain about everything but the food. Needless to say, we officially separated in April of that year, when I asked myself, how do I want the next 10 years of my life to be? Happy or hell? Either option would leave a wake of destruction. Call me selfish, but I chose to be happy. Children can sense when their parents are unhappy, and I didn't want those feelings to infect my daughter. So when I visited her in Bangkok, she got to experience the part of me that was joyful, something I could rarely be while I tiptoed around her mother like walking on eggshells. Anyway, back to the love story. It was at this time where I was in a very miserable state emotionally. Veronica, Marco, and I were still meeting up once a week to hang out as friends. But I was beginning to sense a bit of tension with Veronica and I. The kind of tension that makes beautiful music out of laughter and your heart well up and flutter as if worms are gently eating your heart. We felt it, but neither of us wanted to rush into anything, so we said nothing about it. It was not long before Veronica and I started to see each other more frequently. We lived in opposite sides of the city, and because of our work schedules, we had limited time to chat or spend time during the day. So when I discovered where she worked, I took it upon myself to wait for her after work and take the 45-minute bus ride with her to her place nearly every day. Veronica said it was those times that really made her feel special because it didn't cost anything but was most valuable. From that bus ride, I would then have to catch another bus back to my side of the island 30 minutes later. It was worth it every time. Soon, 6 months had passed in the blink of an eye. Veronica and I had become very close and we maintained a platonic relationship. That boundary was soon to be crossed despite me having no intentions of moving in that direction. I was blowing on cold milk, as the old Turkish saying goes. I still had trust issues and the idea of a committed relationship felt like a burden. But then one balmy evening, after Veronica and I had taken the bus to her side of town, and after talking so late into the evening that I missed my last bus to go home, despite us telling each other that we should avoid the physical, my taxi had just pulled up. I reached for the handle, Veronica grabbed my hand and pulled me back and planted a most welcome and heartwarming kiss. Not long, just enough to say, "It's time." From there, it is hard to believe we continued to take things slowly, but we did. We were both enjoying each other's company regardless of the physical, and it gave us time to see if we really got along well. Not allowing lust to dictate a path to destructive behaviours that has brought many a relationship to a ruin. It was also at this time that Veronica and I decided that we might actually be a good fit for one another. By this time, listeners must be thinking this is all sunshine and rainbows, bullshit, and it's true. With a girl as beautiful as my wife, as you can imagine, a lot of men would give her attention. But as I mentioned before, her entertaining the attention of any other guy from that point forward was definitely a boundary I was not willing to tolerate moving forward. And the same would go for me. So I requested that she delete every contact of every man that was not a family member. I explained that we cannot start any relationship on a shaky foundation, and that if those men were orbiting, then she would never truly be able to focus on making a committed, stable relationship with me. It was very difficult for her, as she will admit there was a sense of security, knowing she could jump ship at any moment, and she even tried to pass that burden on to me. I refused and told her, if you cannot do it of your own free will, then we can't move forward. You have to be the one to do it because you want to build a relationship that takes time and commitment. It's hard work leaving behind the old habits for healthier new ones, but it really put our relationship on firm footing. With that out of the way, we worked hard to improve our communication. And after a few months later, Veronica, after seeing the conditions I lived in, suggested we move in together as it would give us a chance to know if we'd be suitable living together. Prior to this, I was living in a shared room with 4 guys to a room in a 3-bedroom flat. It was not ideal for a relationship to blossom. I was a bit hesitant at first as my rent was very affordable and it left me quite a bit of my salary left over at the end of each month. But after a lot of discussion and consideration, we agreed it would be for the best. It was better than we ever imagined. We moved into a place on the East Coast with 12 towers of 30-story condos. It was like its own neighbourhood. We shared the condo with a young German guy and an older American fellow. It was a great location in between both of our workplaces. Again, we worked on communication. Veronica struggled with feelings of abandonment from her childhood, and I believe that was what I saw earlier on the bus ride with her in the morning years prior when we were just getting to know each other. This would cause turbulence from time to time, especially when I wanted or needed time to myself. It was hard for her to communicate her emotions and often came out in fiery bursts. She didn't always understand herself, and when these episodes did arise, I met them with gentleness and calm, and she really appreciated this. I think most women have emotional issues, and sometimes they are founded in reality, and sometimes they are not. But as a good man, it is up to us to be the calm cove when their ship is being rocked by a sea of emotion. They will appreciate you for that. Since those days, Veronica and I have constantly worked on having solid communication and working towards solutions that work for both of us most of the time, and depending on boundaries for us individually some of the time. Veronica has also been going to therapy for a couple of years now and has worked on her abandonment issues because though I try to understand, I can never truly, and we both agree that it is unfair to burden your partner with things they cannot help you with. Because of this, our relationship has continued to blossom. We moved back to Canada in 2017 and Veronica is now a Canadian citizen and we have accomplished all of our goals that we set out to do. When you find a partner who is willing to row the boat with you, you will both go far. But if you only one person is rowing, you'll just be stuck in circles. Our relationship is far from perfect, but getting closer to it every day. And after 12 years, we have developed a considerate, loving and thoughtful partnership that recognizes ourselves as a couple and as individuals with needs and wants. We can't imagine having to go into the dating world ever again. And I think if we continue to support each other as we have throughout the years, we will never have to. So there you have it, Peter. The hater's gonna hate. My wife and I are currently on a plane headed to Mexico to have a full-on marriage ceremony and wish all your listeners the best. So it just goes to show you there, things can work out, can't they? So I agree with him entirely. Guys who come out here to Thailand, for instance, he's talking about Singapore, but I guess it's true wherever you are in the world. If you meet a woman and she's been on a few dating sites and you get into a serious relationship, I think it's fundamental that you've really got to get her to delete all of those dating sites, because I'll give you a little example. When I met my girlfriend, I met her on Tinder. I was here about 5 months in Bangkok. Now, I actually had a look at her phone when she was in the shower, a little bit naughty, I know, but I was the only one on that Tinder profile of hers that she'd actually responded to. There's a couple of other guys on there, but she hadn't responded to them. And I kind of didn't force her to do it. I said to her, I said, look, you know, because what happened at the start of our relationship, the first month or so, she was getting guys contact her because she was still on Tinder, but she would show me. And I don't know if she was doing it for attention or to make me jealous or whatever. But in the end, we both agreed, look, we've got to both delete our Tinder accounts, Bumble, whatever we're on. And that way, nobody's going to contact her. Nobody's going to contact me. Because let's face it, you don't want, you know, you have bad days. You don't want guys contacting your girlfriend, and you know, you can get a little bit paranoid about it. And the same with the girls. You know, they especially with expats, they think when they come out here, you know, they're just womanizing, which not all of us are. Okay, right. The second story is long also. Now, I like this second story because it's a little bit different. It goes back in time a little bit. It's a little bit slow to get into, but stick with it because it has a really good final conclusion. Okay? I'm a 24-year-old army veteran and I've been to a lot of places in uniform. Deserts, mountains, jungles, frozen tundra, but one experience stands out more than most. It happened around 1998 when I was stationed in Alaska. And not postcard Alaska, I'm talking minus 40 degrees. The kind of cold where the air hurts your face and your eyelashes try to freeze together. And you learn very quickly not to touch bare metal unless you're willing to leave a layer of skin behind. The kind of cold where even your thoughts seem to slow down, just trying to survive the day. Winter up there is also dark for long stretches. Not dramatic mystery, just long grey days where daylight is short and forgettable. You wake up in the dark, work in the dark, and come home in the dark, and after a while, everything feels quiet, muted, and restrained. When I first arrived in Alaska, I was assigned to an airborne support platoon, soldiers trained to jump out of aeroplanes and directly support infantry units, and at that time, the platoon was all male. Based on my years of experience in that job, speciality, and the kinds of combat missions we supported, I immediately knew that was a problem. Our mission involved working with local populations, searches and security tasks, situations where female soldiers weren't optional, they were necessary. So I contacted my job speciality leadership and started the process of getting qualified female soldiers assigned to the platoon. Before those soldiers ever arrived, the Sergeant Major saw females inbound on the roster. I'm convinced some kind of internal alarm system went off. Red lights, sirens, maybe someone shouting, "This is not a drill." That's when I got called into his office. This guy looked like he'd personally fought every war since humans discovered violence, and he stared at me and said, "This is an airborne unit, you can't have females here." I explained the mission requirement, I explained my experience, and I explained that these soldiers weren't liabilities, they were assets. He didn't like it, but he listened, and even though he didn't agree with it, he let it happen because he knew it was the right thing to do. When the two female soldiers finally arrived, they turned out to be outstanding. Physically strong, mentally tough, disciplined, motivated, exactly who you'd want beside you, and at that moment would come back around later, which is why the transition from Alaska to Thailand felt unreal. We left a place that was cold, grey and quiet, landed somewhere that felt like every sense had been turned up at once. Thailand wasn't just warmer, it was brighter, louder, more alive. The light was intense. You could smell spices, fuel, jungle food cooking somewhere nearby. You heard unfamiliar languages, music, traffic, insects. The humidity wrapped around you the second you stepped off the plane. And even food tasted louder compared to Alaska, where everything felt hard, muted and frozen. Thailand felt vibrant in every sense: sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. And it felt like stepping out of black and white and into full colour. We started training with the Thai military, and I'll admit I didn't know what to expect. But it didn't take long to realise they were tough as nails and just a little bit crazy in the best possible way. One Thai sergeant gathered us up to talk about survival and hydration and explained that if you can't find water, you improvise. Then he pulled out a snake, cut its head off, drained the blood into a cup, drank it, and then without hesitation peed into the same cup, drank that too, calmly explaining you could do it a couple of times before it became too toxic to drink. Every American standing there had the same thought, and we complain when our bottled water isn't cold enough. In the evenings, the Thai set up food tents on base, and I ordered fried rice and a soda for $1. And to this day, every time I pay $15 or $20 for a meal in the US, I think about that plate of fried rice and feel personally attacked. At one point, the Thai military suggested a friendly boxing challenge, and before the match even started, they played that traditional Thai boxing music, the high-pitched hypnotic flute-style sound that immediately tells you this is not Western boxing. The Thai fighter came out wearing traditional garments, a headband and armbands, calm, focused, ceremonial, while our guy walked out built like a refrigerator with fists, and the Thai fighter was half his size. So we almost felt bad for him until the fight started. First round was even, second round still even. Then it became clear the Thai fighter had just been warming up and holding back. Third round, fists flying, feet flying, speed, precision, violence with manners. And our guy folded like a lawn chair at a family barbecue while the Thai fighter barely looked winded. They beat us, but they beat us politely. At the end of training, we got to do something special. A Thai airborne jump to earn their jump wings. Huge ornate wings with an elephant, easily the biggest jump wings you can earn. And that meant sitting inside a Thai aircraft on the runway for a couple of hours with the doors closed and no air conditioning. From Alaska, in Thailand, we weren't sitting in aeroplanes anymore. We were slow roasting. It felt like someone set the oven to chicken and forgot about us. Sweat poured, uniforms soaked, and I'm convinced if someone had added seasoning, we'd have been ready to serve. Once airborne, the doors opened, air rushed in, and life returned to our bodies. We jumped, secured an airfield, and immediately stepped off on a road march of at least 10 miles carrying full combat gear. Infantry soldiers were dropping left and right from heat exhaustion, and medics were busy, while off to the side of the road stood the Sergeant Major, tough as nails, not falling out, but absolutely furious, chewing up infantry soldiers who were dropping from the heat. Then his eyes landed on my platoon, specifically my two female soldiers, both about 5'3", junior troops, both assigned as primary machine gunners and carrying heavier weapons than most of the men. They never slowed down. He watched them, looked at me, shook his head and nodded, and he finally got it. I earned my Thai jump wings that day, and I still have them. Later, we were offered a moral welfare and recreation trip, basically the military saying, "You've suffered enough, go and enjoy yourself," and it included Phuket and James Bond Island with a price that was unbelievably cheap. So everybody went. On the drive towards Phuket, the bus suddenly stopped and we were politely but firmly ushered into a Thai jewellery store where we were told there were very good prices inside. After listening to your channel, Peter, I now know all about jewellery store scams. But somehow I walked out with a ruby ring that I later appraised back in the States, and it turned out to be worth more than what I paid. So I escaped Thailand without getting scammed. During this trip, the bus also stopped at what was advertised as a local cashew nut farm, which sounded harmless enough, maybe a quick walk through, a snack, and back on the road. But what I didn't expect was to walk into a reality check. Inside the facility were rows of women seated at simple workstations cracking cashews open one by one. No machines, no automation, just hands, tools, repetition and time. Their hands were stained dark from the sap, permanently marked by the work, and every motion looked practiced, efficient and exhausting. It wasn't fast work, it wasn't easy work, and it definitely wasn't clean. Watching them work made me realise something I'd never once thought about back home. Every time I casually grab a handful of cashew nuts, someone, somewhere, worked far harder than I ever imagined just so I could snack without thinking. I stood there doing the maths in my head. How many cashew nuts have I eaten in my life? How little effort I put into it and how much effort they had to put in for every single one. And it was humbling. Soon after, we were back on the bus crossing the long bridge into Phuket Island with water stretching out on both sides and boats below. And it finally felt like we'd left the military world behind. The hotel was beautiful and absurdly cheap, and I roomed with another senior guy in my platoon, a great soldier, very likeable and completely reckless and clueless in the best possible way. First stop was a legitimate Thai massage where a tiny woman twisted me into shapes. My spine still hasn't forgotten her for leaving me deeply relaxed and slightly traumatized. After the massage, we walked around town admiring the nightlife, and for a while we were checking out how incredibly beautiful the women were. Then it hit us. We were in the wrong area. They weren't women, they were lady boys, and we realised it pretty quickly and moved on immediately. No judgment, just not our thing. My buddy still wanted to find girls, so we grabbed a tuk-tuk. He told the driver exactly what he was looking for, and the driver nodded enthusiastically and drove us through back alleys, then stopped in a dark parking lot behind a building with no music, no lights, and no crowd, and we were thinking, this can't be right. The driver just kept pointing at a door saying, "Girls, girls, girls," and against our better judgment, we paid him and went inside reluctantly. Up a narrow staircase, half expecting to disappear forever. Instead, the door opened into a large upscale bar where several guys looked like they'd stepped straight out of an Asian mafia movie. Tailored suits, ties, sunglasses indoors, and they sat us down, brought drinks and asked what we wanted. My friend explained. The guy smiled and said, "No problem, 1 minute." Then a curtain opened, revealing a giant glass wall with about 30 women behind it, all in bikinis and each wearing a numbered button. And he explained that choosing a number meant a soapy massage. My friend lit up like a kid in a candy store, and when they asked me which number I wanted, I said none. I'm married, I'll stay here, and they shrugged, totally fine with it. My friend disappeared and later returned with the biggest grin I've ever seen, extremely happy with the service provided. Later, we ended up in a bar and my buddy said he needed cash. We knew exactly where the ATM was, just outside the club, maybe a minute or two down the street, so I expected him back quickly. But 45 minutes later passed, then closer to an hour. While waiting, I was sitting innocently at the table trying to keep my distance when one of the girls Pearl Harbored me. I had a tank top on and she leaned over and bit me right on the nipple. Intense pain. I did not cry. I did not strike her, but my soul left my body for a second. Almost an hour after we left, my buddy finally came running back into the bar, breathing hard, sweating, and he told me that after the ATM, he followed a woman back to her place, did what you can imagine, and when it came time to pay, she demanded more money than he had agreed. Then two Thai guys showed up, and that's when he ran, full sprint, streets, alleys, obstacles, escape. Once I realized he was alive, we called it a night and went back to the hotel. The next day, we took long-tail boats through emerald water, towering limestone formations to James Bond Island. A beautiful place, though they tried to sell us fly-covered salted squid hanging on strings, which I passed on. And just like that, it was over. Thailand was beautiful, the people were kind, welcoming, and unforgettable, and the culture, food, and scenery were incredible. I've been to a lot of places in the military, but Thailand stands out, especially considering I only had a couple of days to experience it. I'm submitting this story and hope you'll enjoy it, and whether you choose to read it on the channel or not, I'd really appreciate knowing either way. If you do decide to use it, I'd love to know which video it appears in and when, so I can listen when you read it out. One day, I hope to come back to Thailand, not on a training mission, not on borrowed time, but on a real vacation. And if that ever happens, I'll gladly sit down, buy you a beer, and thank you in person for the stories you share and the way you bring Thailand to life. So, just out of interest, if you're one of those people who've been sitting on a story and you're thinking, shall I send it in or shan't I send it in? If you eventually decide to send in a story to me, it doesn't have to be from Thailand. It can be from anywhere in the world, as long as it's interesting, a little bit quirky, like the story about Singapore there. I always do write to people. I don't read the stories as soon as I get them, because that would be double work. I only read them when I'm editing them or just proofreading them, you know. But if you send in a story, you don't have to keep listening week after week. I'd like you to listen week after week, but you don't have to. What happens is, when I decide to record it, because I record the stories a week in advance, I'll write to you and just say the story you sent in, I'm going to be reading it out next Saturday, and I'll give you the date. Okay, so I do that with every single person that writes in. All right, guys, two brand new stories there, never read out on this channel before. As always, I don't know if the guys sent them to other channels, but certainly first time reading on my channel. Thanks for watching me today. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. You'll get notifications. I upload other videos, not just stories. I'm out and about, and I do all sorts of different videos. If you'd like to support the channel, I do have a membership scheme as well. It's a very cheap membership scheme. It'll entitle you to early release, early viewings of my videos, and I have member streams twice a month. Okay, thanks for your support, and I'll catch up with you real soon with some brand new stories, hopefully next Saturday.